Okay, so let's talk about how exactly to think about options using the lottery ticket technique. Okay, so first let's just forget about options and pretend that we are going to buy some lottery tickets. So there's two possible lottery tickets that you can buy in this world. The green lottery ticket or the red lottery ticket. The lottery tickets have their own rules, which we'll get into in a moment, but it works just like a regular lottery ticket. The player pays out money and hopes to win a jackpot, and the seller sells the player his or her ticket and hopes the player does not win a jackpot, because in that case they're going to have to pay out the money. Okay, so let's take a look at how this works. So first you have the seller that sells the lottery ticket to the buyer, and the buyer might pay something like $2 for the lottery ticket. Now, in scenario one, the lottery ticket buyer wins. So the lottery ticket player or buyer buys the ticket, goes home, either scratches off the lottery ticket or waits for the lottery ticket numbers to be called, and then finds out, all right, they're a winner. Okay, so now what we see is that the lottery ticket player has just won the jackpot, and let's say this jackpot happens to be $5. Well, the $5 that they won is going to be offset slightly by the $2 that they paid out for the ticket, and the $5 that they win is going to have to be paid out by the seller of the lottery ticket. And let's just say it's a convenience store guy who sells the lottery ticket player his lottery ticket. So a convenience store guy has to pay out $5, and on a net basis, he's going to be losing $3 because he at first collected $2 for the ticket from the lottery ticket player, and then later on had to pay out $5. Okay, now let's take a look at scenario two, where now the lottery ticket buyer loses. So lottery ticket seller sells the lottery ticket to the buyer. So convenience store guy sells to the lottery ticket player, and the lottery ticket player now loses. So what happens in this case? Well, if you go to the store and you buy a lottery ticket and you lose, you just lose the price of the ticket, right? So you just pay out your $2, you don't win anything, and so now the buyer of the lottery ticket has lost. On the flip side, now the convenience store guy is happy because you didn't have to come back and collect your prize. So convenience store guy is happy because he collected his $2 for your lottery ticket and you did not win. So those are kind of the dynamics of the lottery ticket player and seller or convenience store guy. And we'll see how this relates to options as we go through more in this lesson. Okay, so let's start out with what exactly is an option. So getting into more of the financial jargony type of stuff, an option is what's called a financial derivative. It's a derivative because the option itself derives its value from the movements of the underlying asset. And in the case that we're going to go into today, that is the underlying asset in this case is a stock. So for example, an equity option derives its value primarily from the underlying share price of the stock. Now to tie this back into the lottery ticket technique, think of the buyer of an option like the lottery ticket player. So if you're the buyer of the lottery ticket, it's going to have a very similar behavior and outcome to the buyer of an option. And if you're the seller of an option, think of yourself as the convenience store guy. You're the person who's selling the lottery ticket. So if you're the seller of the lottery ticket, you're hoping that the person who's playing the lottery does not win. You just want to collect your premium or the price of the ticket every time. We'll get into that a little more deeply in a moment. Okay, so what are the rules, quote unquote, for each ticket? Now, just like we talked about before, we have the green lottery ticket and the red lottery ticket. Now, the rules here state that for a call option, we want the price of the underlying stock to go up. Some of you may have heard the little trick that gets tossed around, call up, put down, and that little trick basically tells you what direction you're betting on if you're the buyer of that option. So what I mean in this case is if you're the buyer of the call option, you're hoping that the stock price goes up. And similarly, if you're the buyer of a put option, you're hoping that the price of the stock goes down. And that's where the call up, put down trick comes from. And going back to the lottery ticket, this is the idea that if you pick your numbers for the lottery ticket, you hope that you get a number above the number that you picked. So in this case, it looks like it's about 60. You hope that your numbers come in above 60 and then your lottery ticket's a winner. And for this lottery ticket, you still make money if your number comes in, but in this case, you're betting that your numbers are going to come in below the number that you picked. So in this case, it looks like you picked somewhere around 90, and you're hoping that the numbers come in or they get chosen to be below 90, and that makes your ticket a winner. Okay, so continuing on in terms of what is an option. So the buyer wins the lottery when? And this is kind of a reiteration of the last slide. So we say the buyer of the lottery ticket wins the lottery in the options world by saying it's in the money. So if you're the lottery ticket winner, you are considered in the money. So the seller is going to be paying out the winner in this case, which again is bad for the seller. So if you're the convenience store guy or gal, you are going to be paying out the winner if the lottery ticket player wins. Okay, and so when we talk about the buyer losing the lottery, then we say this is a case in the options world where the option is out of the money. The seller does not pay out the winner in this case, and that's good for the seller. So in terms of the lottery ticket, the convenience store guy is happy when the lottery ticket player does not win the lottery, and that would be out of the money for the lottery ticket player in terms of options speak. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so now let's kind of get into a little more options jargon and just kind of introduce what exactly is an option when we're talking about what its function is. Now, the buyer of an equity option really has the right to do something. And if you have the green lottery ticket in this case, we're going to call this the call option. And the red lottery ticket, we're going to call it the put option. Now, a call option gives you the right to buy the underlying stock. So if you buy a call option, that doesn't necessarily mean you've purchased the stock. If you buy the call option, it's like buying a separate ticket that's giving you the right to buy the actual stock certificate later on. If you buy a put option is also buying a little ticket, but this little ticket then gives you the right to sell the stock certificate that you might already own later on. So the buyer of an option has the right to buy or sell the underlying stock depending on if they buy a call option or a put option. Now the seller of an equity option has the obligation to buy or to sell the underlying stock. Now we say the obligation here because think back to the lottery ticket example. If you go buy a lottery ticket at a convenience store and you win, you got to come back to that convenience store and say, hey, I just won the lottery ticket, you got to pay me out now. And because you already paid the convenience store person your lottery ticket amount, let's say it's $2 or $3, you've essentially paid for a service, and now it's their obligation to provide return to that service. In this case, it's lottery ticket winnings. So same idea with an equity option seller. So an equity option seller is obligated to fulfill their obligation, whether that's buying or selling the underlying stock from you, depending on what it is that you're buying, a call option or a put option. And we'll get into more of that in a moment as well.